Disclaimer: this is audio horror fiction. If darkness or the creatures it holds scares you, leave now. Still listening? Good. Then let's begin. Have you ever heard of the drug called Scopolamine? It's extracted from the fruit of a tree that grows freely across the northern part of South America. What sets this drug apart from others is that, when administered in the right amount, you will appear to be sober and conscious, except you are completely open to suggestion. That's right, your very free will is gone when influenced by this drug. It's a huge issue in Colombia because criminals can walk with you into your home and you'll help them out with your TV, if they only ask. The victim will do anything and accept any suggestion made to them. Your ability to say no is gone. That's why it's colloquially known in Colombia as the devil's breath, because you'll be persuaded to do anything as if the devil himself had forced you, things that you would never do otherwise. I learned about it through my roommate from college, Carlos. He's an international student, straight from Colombia. This guy told some fantastic stories about back home. We'd go out, drink, party, and when we'd end up coming back to the apartment without any lady friends, Carlos would bring out his stories. I preferred these nights because the tales he'd tell were sometimes funny, sometimes terrifying, but always gripping. They were amassed over 18 years spent living in a country nicknamed La Colombia because of the crazy things that could happen every day with the massive drug, kidnapping, and otherwise general crime problem. His stories would often involve family members, and through conversations in these stories I became pretty well aware of his family back home. There was an uncle that would come up in some of them, and although he was pretty open about all other aspects about his home life, I realized whenever he brought up this uncle, he became uncharacteristically vague until he got away from the subject. Curiosity got the better of me, and one night I asked him about it. I wish I never had. As I said, Carlos was very open, and on the off chance that we'd broach a topic he didn't want to discuss, he'd usually deflect the discussion to something else. This time he suddenly became stoic and quiet. He stared off into the distance and I thought he had spaced out. After an uncomfortable amount of time, I was just deciding to go on to bed when he spoke. "I'll tell you about him." I had tried to dispel from him the idea, telling Carlos that it was clearly a rough issue and that I was sorry that I had asked, but secretly I had hoped he would tell the story anyway. My hopes were answered and Carlos assured me it was alright. "I need you to promise not to tell anyone else this story. If I begin crying before the end, I'll be fine. Just leave me be. Is that understood?" When Carlos spoke of tears, I wondered what I had gotten into. Thinking back, had we not been liquored up like we were, I doubt Carlos would have even tried to tell the tale. He began, "When I was 6, my uncle lived just a block from me," he said. His son Paolo was my age, so I'd often find myself playing at his house, sometimes late into the night. This was okay with my mother, and I even kept an extra set of PJs and a toothbrush there so that when I did stay late, I could easily spend the night. A child walking home at night anywhere is a mistake, but in Colombia, a kidnapping would be the best case scenario. One night after Paolo and I had lost track of time building endless creations out of Legos, I realized it was far too late to head home. I went about brushing my teeth and getting ready for bed. That night, however, I decided Paolo and I would play a prank on my uncle. This prank saved my life. At this point in the story, Carlos became noticeably agitated. He was beginning to sweat despite the room being cool, and I myself sobered up quickly at his words saved my life, wondering whether I felt comfortable hearing the rest of the tale. Curiosity is my vice, and curiosity kept me silent despite it all. Not hearing any opposition from me, Carlos continued. "I told Paolo that I'd hide in the closet and wait for his father to come home. When he came to the room to check on Paolo, I'd burst out of the closet and give him a fright. Paolo loved the idea and giggled at the thought while I rushed to the closet. The minutes felt like hours to my child's mind,
and I nearly came out when I heard a lock jiggle. I sat back and stifled my laughter as our playful plan came together. The door opened and I heard several voices in rapid-fire hush Spanish. This was odd, as my uncle rarely wanted to do anything but sleep after a long day at work. Among the voices, I could hear my uncle. It was rare, but when it did come, it was only an okay or an alright. I remember wondering whether I should scratch the plan. Scaring my uncle would result in a laugh. Scaring his friends would result in a spanking. I'm lucky that I was indecisive. As they came up the stairs and the voices became clearer, I began to understand that this was a more malicious situation than a house visit by friends. There were two of them besides my uncle, one who spoke in a deep, coarse voice, and the other a voice like a snake. They said things like, "Thanks for opening the door, sir. Now where's the jewelry?" My uncle would answer, "There." "Upstairs?" "Thank you." "Behind this door?" "Yes." "Good. Any hidden money?" "Here." "Great, thanks. Anything of value behind this door?" Carlos' voice cut, and I suddenly realized he was getting choked up. Curiosity be damned. I finally told him to stop, but he wouldn't. He only shushed me and continued. He said the robbers had asked, "Anything of value behind this door?" If they had asked in another way, if they had said something about jewelry or money, my uncle would have said no. But they asked about value, and what was most precious to my uncle in the world was behind that door. And so he answered truthfully, "Yes." I heard the door open and the snake-voiced one said, "Oh my. Hello, child." Paolo didn't answer. He only said, "Papa, who are these two?" The deeper voiced one chimed in, "Come on, man. We got what we came here for. Let's go." I wish they had gone. They should have gone. But the snake-voiced man with almost a gleeful hiss said, "Wait, let's see how well this Scopolamine works. Sir, how about you take this gun?" At this point I realized Carlos had never mentioned Paolo in all his past tales. I begged Carlos to stop. Carlos continued with a face displaying anguish, his voice as if to say, "You asked for this one, you got it." It was at this point Carlos told me about Scopolamine, about how the victim will do anything and accept any suggestion made to them, about how your ability to say no is gone, about how this is why it's colloquially known in Colombia as the devil's breath, because you'll be persuaded to do anything as if the devil himself had forced you, things you would never do otherwise, things like kill your own son. The second Carlos mentioned that, the dams holding back the tears broke, and all the pain from his childhood trauma became visible. I held him until the tears lulled him to sleep. Then I put him to bed. I climbed into my own bed, knowing my sleep would be light and restless. Carlos and I never spoke about that night again. The closest we ever got was when we both happened to be in the living room together, watching the news while doing homework. As I tapped on the calculator, I heard a word that immediately caught both of our attention. The reporter was saying that a new drug was gaining popularity in the States and had spread from Florida all the way to Texas and Pennsylvania in just a few short months. A drug being shipped from Colombia that was being used to make people hand over their money and belongings willingly. A drug called Scopolamine, the devil's breath. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, share, and subscribe to help feed the dark machine. If you have a story that you would like for me to read, check the description below for details.